Hi everybody and welcome. This is the Trailer Park Prophet Show, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. Welcome aboard. This is Hump Day with the El Prophet. If you want to call into the program, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. Oh, big news of the day. A journalist was beheaded by ISIS in Iraq. And I was surprised to learn that this journalist has been a captive of ISIS for over 2 years, or around 2 years. I think I got his name here for you. Really sad story. And what's interesting is we didn't even know about this guy, this reporter. And he's a U.S. reporter. In fact, here we got a video from the president today. Breaking news from the White House. Here's President Obama talking about this journalist. His name is Jim Foley. And again, he's been under ISIS control for the last 2 years. This Jim Foley is an American reporter, journalist. And he was captured in Syria 2 years ago while reporting on the conflict. But I'm surprised we didn't even know about this guy. I've been scouring my organic computer trying to remember whether or not I knew about this guy Foley or not, Jim Foley. And, you know, if Jim Foley was a priority of the president or the lamestream media, we would have already known about this guy. 2 years in captivity? And I believe, well, no, I don't want to say that, but ISIS, they actually videotaped the beheading of this Jim Foley and put it on the internet, on social media. So I guess the president felt like he had to come out. President is back on Martha's Vineyard vacationing, but he came out just a few hours ago and he's talking about that's what Jim Foley stood for. A man who lived for his work, who courageously told the stories of his fellow human beings, who was liked and loved by friends and family. God, so he basically, the president today gave a eulogy for this poor guy, Jim Foley, who had his head cut off. I have it on my Facebook page. You know, and that's ISIS. And what's really interesting, you have to understand. I'm going to remind you, you don't have to understand anything, but ISIS has been rejected by Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and also been condemned by a few other Arab countries. I don't want to say which ones because I might get it wrong. But at any rate, it seems like Obama is trying to suggest that this ISIS group is an outcast and not representative of the greater Islamic community. But make no mistake, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are enemies of the U.S., sworn enemies of the U.S., just like Iran is a sworn enemy, just like Hamas is a sworn enemy of the United States and the Jewish people. So the president is trying to nuance the body politic that is Islam. Or actually, it's a theocracy, the combination of religion and government and ideology. But at any rate, listen carefully to the president here. And this was about an hour ago. And he's talking about this poor, unfortunate Jim Foley who got beheaded. I mean, his folks had to see this, his colleagues, his neighbors. Jim Foley getting his head cut off before the world. Alright, here's the president about an hour ago. Alright, Mr. President, welcome back to the Trailer Park Prophet Show.
Today the entire world is appalled by the brutal murder of Jim Foley by the terrorist group ISIL. Jim was a journalist, a son, a brother, and a friend. He reported from difficult and dangerous places, bearing witness to the lives of people a world away. He was taken hostage nearly 2 years ago in Syria, and he was courageously reporting at the time on the conflict there. Jim was taken from us in an act of violence that shocks the conscience of the entire world.
He doesn't say who.
He was 40 years old, one of 5 siblings, the son of a mom and dad who worked tirelessly for his release. Earlier today I spoke to the Foleys and told them that we are all heartbroken at their loss and joined them in honoring Jim and all that he did. Now, Jim Foley's life stands in stark contrast to his killers. Let's be clear about ISIL. They have rampaged across cities and villages, killing innocent, unarmed civilians in cowardly acts of violence. They abduct women and children.
And I got to interrupt here, Mr. President, and they've been doing it now for over 2 years. We've been reporting on that fact right here at the Trailer Park Prophet, and you've done nothing about it. You've had intelligence that this was going to happen. You had intelligence that it was happening, and you chose to do nothing. And in my mind, the deaths of James Foley and all those group of religious people up on that mountain in Iraq, all the deaths in Syria, every one of those deaths, Mr. President, is on your hands because you prematurely took out of Iraq. Now, I appreciate President Obama saying, well, you know, the Iraqi war was kind of a stupid war, but it was a war nonetheless, and you have to make the best of the situation. Once America has shed blood and treasure in Iraq, that means you've got to stay there to the end, even if it's 10, 15, 20 years. That's what's called having a vision of the world. Islam's been around since the 6th century, and they've been a problem ever since they've been in existence. Radical Islam is not going to go away. There may be more radical elements of it, but they'll moderate and other ones will grow. But you don't, I mean, just think what would have happened during World War II is if after Franklin Delano Roosevelt died, and the country decided right in the middle of the war, okay, well, that's enough, let's go home, just because the vice president maybe thought it was a good idea or not a good idea anymore. No, that's not what you do. We had already lost a lot of blood and treasure in World War II. So you're not going to change your foreign policy just because a president dies in an untimely manner. That's crazy. And yet Obama ran against the Iraqi war. Okay, fine, but when you take over that situation, you've got to adopt some of the doctrine and keeping Iraq safe, keeping Iraq out of the hands of radical Islamists, giving the people of Iraq inalienable rights was a noble, just idea. And for Obama just to pull out of Iraq hastily and allow a power vacuum, which is ISIS, and then here's all this loss of life, all this suffering, all this genocide, and it's all because of Barack Hussein Obama. So to listen here, and he's all, you know, he's down in the jaw, and you know, the jaw or whatever you want to say. I was trying to do it the Southern way. You know, it's so pathetic. President Obama is such a pathetic political actor. All right, Mr. President, continue.
To subject them to torture and rape and slavery. They've murdered Muslims, both Sunni and Shia, by the thousands. They target Christians and religious minorities, driving them from their homes, murdering them when they can, for no other reason than they practice a different religion. They declare their ambition to commit genocide against an ancient people.
Us.
So ISIL speaks for no religion. Their victims are overwhelmingly Muslim, and no faith teaches people to massacre innocents. No
Islam does.
For what they did yesterday and what they do every single day.
Now see, that's just total BS. Bruce Springsteen. It's in the freaking Quran that every Muslim has a duty and a responsibility to either convert people to Islam or kill them. So that's an out-and-out lie. If not, it's a lie by omission. There's all kinds of passages in the Quran talking about infidels. All right. Continue, Mr. President.
ISIL has no ideology of any value to human beings.
Islam.
The ideology is bankrupt.
Ugh.
They may claim out of expediency that they are at war with the United States or the West, but the fact is they terrorize their neighbors.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they say they're at war with the U.S., but so does Al-Qaeda, so does the Taliban, so does Hamas. Gringo, please. Mulatto, please.
And offer them nothing but an endless slavery to their empty vision and the collapse of any definition of civilized behavior. People like this ultimately fail.
Okay, see, that's total BS too, because the policy now with ISA is just to push them back, not eliminate them. And if these people like ISA had no place on earth, then the Obama policy on ISIS would be to wipe them out completely, not just contain them or push them back. See, that's such BS. All right, Mr. President, continue.
Fail because the future is won by those who build and not destroy. And the world is shaped by people like Jim Foley and the overwhelming majority of humanity who are appalled by those who kill them. The United States of America will continue to do what we must do to protect our people. We will be vigilant.
Now be careful, see, that's BS too, because if the president wanted to get Jim Foley out of the grasp of ISIS, he would have made that a big part of his last campaign, a big part of his daily speeches. You know, it would have been front and center. And he hasn't done anything. President Obama hasn't done a thing for that Marine that's being held down in Mexico. He's been there since February. This is such crap. But you see, also what he's doing in his speeches, he wants everybody to think that the reason that we're in Iraq now is to protect our own people. Now remember, there's been at least 400 Special Forces people sent to Iraq in the last couple months at the order or behest of President Barack Obama. And he says, well, the reason we're going there is to protect our embassy. When in fact we have a state-of-the-art embassy that is well guarded, protected, but he uses that, see, protect our people, when in fact we're over there, those people are focused on taking out ISIS. So we've got boots on the ground. We are at war with ISIS. Although this president won't come out and say that. I mean, he was saying that ISIS is at war at us, or he said, you know, he's kind of dismissive about it. Hell yeah, they're at war with us. Anybody with a Facebook account knows that. But see how he's mincing words and smoke screening over the fact that we are back in Iraq militarily. And then, another story today was on how many airstrikes we've made in Iraq on ISA. And I think it's up to 90, which is quite a few. All right, Mr. President, continue.
And we will be relentless.
Bullshit.
Americans anywhere, we do what's necessary to see that justice is done. And we act against ISIL, standing alongside others.
Who?
The people of Iraq. who with our support are taking the fight to ISIL.
Of course.
Must continue coming together to expel these terrorists from their communities.
What about Turkey?
The people of Syria, whose story Jim Foley told, do not deserve to live under the shadow of a tyrant or terrorists.
And see, here we are. We're in another war. We're in a proxy war in Syria with Russia. And we're losing badly. And yet, here's Barack Hussein Obama, Mr. What did he get? The Nobel Peace Prize. You know, what a crock. And you know we got boots in the ground on Syria. All right, continue.
They have our support in their pursuit and the future rooted in dignity. From governments and peoples across the Middle East, there has to be a common effort to extract this cancer so that it does not spread. There has to be a clear rejection of these kind of nihilistic ideologies. One thing we can all agree on is that a group like ISIL has no place in the 21st century. Friends and allies around the world, we share a common security and a common set of values that are rooted in the opposite of what we saw yesterday. And we will continue to confront this hateful terrorism and replace it with a sense of hope and civility. That's what Jim Foley stood for. A man who lived his work, who courageously told the stories of his fellow human beings, and was liked and loved by friends and family. Today, the American people will all say a prayer for those who love Jim. All of us feel the ache of his absence.
Oh, God.
His loss. We keep in our prayers those other Americans who are separated from their families. And we will do everything that we can to protect our people and the timeless values that we stand for. May God bless and keep Jim's memory, and may God bless the United States of America.
Oh, what a crock. I'm serious, Mr. President. What a phony, baloney, rubber banana our president is. I mean, for one thing, the president's demeanor was so calm, and there was no passion in his speech. In fact, I think President Obama was, in a way, happy that radical Islam could be presented as ISIS so that he could come out and say, well, you know, I've come out publicly against the more radical aspects of Islam. I'm a moderate. See, now I can claim, well, I'm a moderate. I was outraged over what ISIS did. But he won't come out with any passion. There's no passion in that speech. There's no resolve. I mean, he said there's no place for ISIS in the 21st century, but he didn't say, look, we're going to hunt you down like scalded dogs. And we're going to grant you the same mercy that you granted this reporter. You know, there's no, hey, we're going to get out there and get revenge. You know, he's not pissed off. He's not angry. He's just disappointed. It's not even big enough to rate on his emotional scale as angry. Where's the resolve? You know, it's the same thing with President Obama and what's going on in Ferguson. He has that same tone. Everything's out of his control, you know. I mean, all this stuff is going on, and it's terrible, and he wishes it wasn't going on. But he seems totally vacant to be able to do anything. Or to offer any encouragement. No passion. And like I was saying, you know, if President Obama wanted to do something about Ferguson, he could get on the air and say, hey, look, the majority of these individuals that are rioting, in fact, we found out today that 78 people got arrested in Ferguson for rioting, and they're all from somewhere other than Ferguson, mainly California and New York. And only 3 people from Ferguson have been arrested for rioting. And if the president was really all about bringing us together, he would say to the black community, look, you're the ones that are doing this rioting, you're the ones that are doing this looting, and you're the wrong representation for black people. No wonder white cops are shooting black people disproportionately. Black people are committing a disproportionate amount of the crime. So knock it off. Pull up your pants. Get a job. Learn to speak English. Don't sound like you have marbles in your mouth. President Obama could easily say that, but he's not going to. Because he'd rather see the black community degenerate, devolve into what Karl Marx would call useful idiots. So that they can go rent a mob, start riots all over the country, and maybe eventually we're going to have martial law declared on us. I mean, that's a conspiracy that tops all conspiracies, but it's in the writing of a lot of these professors all across the USA and Europe. Nothing new. Nothing new at all. Oh, and now the Attorney General, Eric Holder, the #1 cop in the U.S., has landed in Ferguson. The Ferguson yokel locals can't handle a situation like they have of a cop shooting an unarmed teen. So now the big #1, Eric Holder, Attorney General, is going to come cruising into Ferguson like Batman. All right, Mr. President. How about some resolve? How about, President Obama has more resolve and emotion of hate for the Tea Party than he does ISIS. How about that? All right, let's see. Let me get... Oh, here we go. This is kind of cool. We'll do this. This is from Fox News. This guy's name is Jonathan Gentry. And he's going to talk about how things in Ferguson are way out of focus and it ain't the white people's fault. All right, Jonathan, I guess he's a minister. Take it away. And he's black. Its name again.
Jackson, Al Sharpton, NAACP, everyone out there. You should be bringing this same message. You step out your limousine, stop the violence. Stop the violence. Everyone's shaking your hand, doing this, doing that. Hey, Jesse, me and my homies are down there riding, looting, but good to see you, bro. And we'll catch you around the block. Yeah, we down here marching. Say something. Say something. Don't just sit there and march and shake hands with everybody. Brother, do something about it.
Oh, that's it. Okay, I thought we had a lot more. Well, at any rate, I mean, it's absolutely true. You know, the Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton showed up down in Ferguson and get a load of this. The first thing Al Sharpton did was went to the parents of Michael Brown, the kid that got shot here a few Saturdays ago by a police officer. Al Sharpton went to the parents of the grieving juvenile teenager, and he asked him for some money. He said he'll get this in the media, help him out, get him a good lawyer, but he needed some money. Al Sharpton needed some money. I mean, this is no kidding. And the parents turned Al Sharpton away. I mean, they were really angry. But that's what it's all about, the Al Sharpton Shakedown. That's what Barack Obama learned running a community action group that was started by Sal Alinsky. Get out there in the streets, harass, threaten, guerrilla theater. That's what progressive socialists statists are all about. It's the race industry. And it's good work if you can get it. The old prophet could use some of that money. I have been thinking about calling the Republican Party to see if they needed anybody out here on the Western Slope. Okay, you just... let's see, that's not that good. We're not going to do that story. Alright, okay, we just heard from President Obama about the beheading of the journalist in Iraq. I got this from Twitsy, I can't even say it. How do you say it? Not Twitsy. Twitchy, which is a compilation of what's being said on Twitter. And let's see if we have it. Okay, now the Chancellor of... No, not the Chancellor. The Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, said that it was enraging that they beheaded the journalist. Let's see. They called the murder of James Foley. I gotta write his name down. James Foley. Poor family. You should have heard his family on the media today talking about James Foley's life, and man, they were cool, calm, and collective. It was really beautiful. But at any rate, this came from Downing Street from David Cameron, the Prime Minister of Britain. He calls the murder of James Foley shocking and depraved. PM Cameron interrupting holiday and is returning to London over this beheading. And Vetergrand Sustern said, good for David Cameron. British PM already speaking out about Foley beheading. And then David Cameron himself says on Twitter, he says, if true, the murder of James Foley is shocking and depraved, I will today chair meetings on the situation in Iraq and Syria. So the Prime Minister of Britain is taking what just happened as serious, and President Obama is still sitting on Martha's Vineyard. Not that President Obama can't do whatever he needs to do from Martha's Vineyard, but sometimes in politics, how you react to something kind of gives a message to the world how serious you are. And let's see. And Niall Gardner says, meanwhile, Obama is still AWOL. David Cameron cuts holiday short. And, this could just be politics and make it look like President Obama is out of it. Let's see whatever. At any rate, that's the basic story. And I guess you gotta say, well, is David Cameron showboating? Well, he might be, but he certainly has good reason to be. Alright? He has a good reason to be showboating or saying, man, this is bad news, man. This changes a calculation. That's basically it. When they start publicly cutting the heads of journalists off, that's a whole new level. Oh my God, this is so funny. Now this is what happens when you have a wishy-washy president. This foreign nation, let me go to the article. It's just kind of interesting how President Obama is being made fun of. I got this story from Western Journalism. I like the headline. It says, ouch! This foreign nation just mocked Obama for his hypocrisy on Ferguson's situation. And here, I gotta show this to you. It's so funny. But it just... we've reported on how more and more people around the world leaders, are making fun of Obama and mocking him, and this is a pretty good example. Oh, it was Egypt. Yeah, that's right. It says, it's unusual for Egypt to criticize such a major donor and it was not immediately clear why the government would have taken such a step. Ties between Washington and Cairo were strained after Egyptian security forces killed hundreds of Muslim Brotherhood supporters following the army's ousting of freely electing President Mohamed Morsi in July of 2013. Well, let me find the article here. So, what's going on here is Egypt is just taking the opportunity to make fun of Barack Obama. And let's see, where is this? This is how, or how's this for an interesting turn of events regarding the town that became ground zero for radical agitation and unrest. Another country, one that we supported with millions in foreign aid, is now advising U.S. authorities on how to deal with ongoing protests, rioting, looting in Ferguson, Missouri. And the poke-in-the-eye language this country uses is clearly reminiscent of what President Obama once said to them about the treatment of the Muslim Brotherhood. So, I mean, this is getting to be a comedy on the world stage. I mean, that's what's happening here. I mean, Egypt is making fun of Barack Hussein Obama on the world stage. I mean, you gotta laugh. I mean, I didn't really want this to happen to President Obama, but you know what? I mean, his reality is of his own making. Alright, if you want to call in and talk to yours truly, the Trailer Park Prophet, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. Alright. That's so funny. Egypt making fun of Barack Obama and his dealing of Ferguson. And see, President Obama can't even go to Ferguson. Because he's not going to say anything that's going to change those people's minds. Make them stop rioting and looting. That's exactly what he wants. It's so pathetic. And remember how the media picked on George Bush for not going and landing in New Orleans during Katrina? He just flew over because he thought it'd create too much of a distraction and take up valuable space at the airport. And nothing about Obama in the lamestream media. Why doesn't he go down to Ferguson? Tell him to knock it off. Well, he is sending his number one cop. Okay, this is going to be kind of interesting now. I listened to this. Now, this is Melissa Harris Perry's searing tribute to black men killed by police. No rights which the white man was bound to respect. And she's put together a list of about 8 situations where black men were shot by white cops. And, you know, I mean, if I had more time, we could go through, or I could go through, or my staff, my non-existent staff could go through, and we would, you know, go through every incident. But she's already saying, basically, that Michael Brown, the last one, that was the fault of a white cop, which the jury's still out. But, of course, the narrative of the progressive socialist status is that black people are killed by white cops all the time. In fact, she says at one point that 2 times a month, 2 times a week, that a white cop shoots a black youth. I mean, she makes comment by that. And one of the things she says, too, is absolutely incorrect. She says that every man is created equal is in the Constitution. It isn't. It's in the Declaration of Independence. So she's got that totally wrong. But listen to her indignation. And again, Melissa Harris Perry is on MSNBC. All right, Melissa, take it away. Melissa, you're back on the Trailer Park Prophet Show.
In the past decade alone, January 24th, 2004, Timothy Stanberry, Brooklyn, New York, unarmed. November 25th, 2006, Sean Bell, Queens, New York, unarmed. January 1, 2009, Oscar Grant, Oakland, California, unarmed. January 29, 2010, Aaron Campbell, Portland, Oregon, unarmed. July 18, 2011, Alonzo Ashley, Denver, Colorado, unarmed. March 7, 2012, Wendell Allen, New Orleans, Louisiana, unarmed. September 14, 2013, Jonathan Farrell, Charlotte, North Carolina, unarmed. July 17, 2014, Eric Garner, Staten Island, New York, unarmed. August 9, 2014, Michael Brown, Ferguson, Missouri, unarmed. In the past decade alone, these men and hundreds of others have lost their lives to police. Local police report to the FBI killing at least 400 people a year. From 2006 to 2012, a white police officer killed a black person at least twice a week in this country. Which brings us back to Ferguson, Missouri. According to a report in the Daily Beast, in 2009, police officers charged a man for property damage because he bled on their uniforms while they arrested him and allegedly beat him bloody. Ferguson, Missouri, where it took 6 days to release the name of an officer who shot an unarmed teenager to death. Ferguson, Missouri, where police released images of someone who might be Michael Brown involved in a store robbery, and then hours later said the robbery had nothing to do with why Michael Brown was stopped by the police officer who killed him. Ferguson is just outside St. Louis, Missouri, the place where, as historian Blair Kelly reminded us this week in The Root, Dred Scott sued for his freedom on the grounds that he and his wife had for many years lived in a free state. This case eventually went to the Supreme Court, and in 1857, Chief Justice Roger Taney declared that Scott had no right to sue because, as a black man, he was never intended to be an American. Speaking on the clause in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal, Taney wrote, quote, "It is too clear for dispute that the enslaved African race were not intended to be included and formed no part of the people who framed and adopted this declaration." And he went on to say that black men had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. No rights which the white man was bound to respect. No rights which the white man was bound to respect. No rights which the white man was bound to respect.
Now, isn't that emotional? No rights that the white man is bound to respect. But you gotta understand, now this is really important. The Dred Scott case is a big case. And the deal was, Dred Scott, he married a white woman, and then they lived up in Illinois, I believe it was, or Indiana for 4 or 5 years as free people. And then they came back down to Missouri and they were arrested because they were a mixed couple, and there was a big question whether or not Dred Scott, was he free because he lived in a free part of the United States, and then he could also kind of like go back to the southern states where there was slavery. And of course that was the case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And liberals today, people like Melissa Harris Perry, all the professors, 99% of them across the USA, they look at the Dred Scott case and they say that the Supreme Court should have ruled that blacks had the same rights as whites, but they didn't. It was in the Constitution. And the only remedy was to change the Constitution. The people of this country had to buck up under their constitutional republic and send their duly representatives to Congress with the mission of taking that part of the Constitution out of there, or writing an amendment, the 13th Amendment, which they eventually passed, and which they didn't get the support of the majority of the Southern Democrats. But the point is, the people and their representatives had to change the Constitution, not the court. In this scenario, the people have more power than the court. And when we talk about the separation of powers and the separation of government, remember the ultimate power in a constitutional republic is the people. So in the event of slavery, in order to get our Constitution adopted, we had to put in there to get the support of the southern states so that we could bind ourselves as the United States. We had to make concession to the southern states about how blacks were only 2/3 of a person. At least we got that. See, that was key. Otherwise, we would have had another civil war, and we would have never adopted this brilliant new Constitution of ours. So we made a deal with the devil, realizing down the road that the mechanisms were in this Constitution to eventually right that horrible wrong. But the only way to do that, or the most purest way, the most virtuous way, would be to admit as a people that that was a mistake. And we want that changed. We, the people, want that changed in our Constitution. That is a higher standing than had the Supreme Court in the Dred Scott decision had decided, okay, hey, wait a minute. Blacks are humans too. And they admitted that. They said, hey, look, this is wrong. And if you read that decision, I had it. I could bring it out and read it to you, but you can Google the Dred Scott decision, and you'll understand more clear what the thinking was, what the logic was. And there's a huge difference, and they did it the right way. They did it the hard way. They did it the difficult way. And that is the way that is an example and reminiscent of who we are as a people. We understood back in the day that slavery was wrong. The majority of us in the United States thought slavery is wrong. So anyways, and Melissa Harris Perry looks like a mulatto. Alright, if you want to call in, talk to yours truly, Trailer Park Prophet, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. What a crock, Melissa. See, she's all about hating America. Like we have original sin. She's no different than the Catholics. Always trying to guilt trip you. Yeah, so here we are. We're talking about this poor young man getting shot down in his prime in Ferguson, Missouri. We never even heard of Ferguson until 2 weeks ago. And now there's all this rioting and looting from Rent-A-Mob coming in from all over the United States. And see, Democrats love a riot. So while all this is going on, there's 7 killed in Chicago. 7 over the weekend. 28 wounded. This is coming from CBS News. Where's Al Sharpton? Where's President Obama? Where's the hashtag? God. What a crock. Alright, this is really good. I really like this guy. He's on the Wall Street Journal editorial board. His name is Jason Riley. And he's upset that NBC liberals apple cart by chronicling facts which refute their mythic narrative of bullying white cops and harassment. I love this guy. By the way, he's black. And this story comes by way of BizPack Review. This was out there yesterday. Alright, we're going to listen to this guy. Oh my God, he's on Meet the Press. So this was this Sunday. It's only 44 seconds. Jason Riley from the Wall Street Journal. I love this guy. Come on, Jason. Talk to us, buddy.
About Ferguson, because you've written a whole book. Please stop helping us. How liberals make it harder for blacks to succeed. What we've seen in Ferguson certainly shows the disengagement between a local police force and the community.
You could say that. I mean, I don't want to litigate this in the press. If the officer used excessive force, I think he should be prosecuted. But at the same time, let's not pretend that our morgues and cemeteries are full of young black men because cops are shooting them. The reality is that it's because other black people are shooting them. And we need to talk about black criminality. Blacks are only 13% of the population, but they're 50% of homicide victims in this country, and 90% of those victims are killed by other black people. And we need to talk about that.
Hell yeah. That's what we should be talking about. That's what President Obama should be talking about. President Obama should be saying, hey, look, stop blaming Whitey. You got to clean up your own neighborhoods. Clean up your own lives. Okay, hey, we got some Zoe Nation for you. Alfonso Mourning, what am I thinking about? Alright, here comes Alfonso Rachel. That's his name.
Wait, is Romney thinking about running for president again? No! Man, I am sure I heard a saying that says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And if that's the case, then let me send out the invitations right now, because it's a Republican Party in the rubber room. I think with that propaganda. Okay, look, this isn't really about Romney. And although he wasn't my first pick, I preferred him to Obama. And I prefer him to Hillary Clinton. But that ain't saying much. It's not about who Romney would be running against. It's about the voters. You got to get through to them. Look, if Obamacare was modeled after Romneycare, and people voted for Obama because they saw him as so compassionate and super awesome because he was going to give us Obamacare, let's vote for him, even though we really don't know what Obamacare is, but Obama is black, and he's going to teach the white man a lesson and take his money and give us free stuff with it. Yeah, Obama rocks. How can they see Obama as the good guy and see Romney as the bad guy when Romney is the one who created the healthcare model that Obama used to look like the good guy? You see my point, Republicans? You're not going up against the candidate. You're going up against the culture. Too many of y'all have not figured that out yet. What? You think Romney is going to make a grand I told you so speech with the issue on Ukraine? We've seen Obama slam in the debates. His followers weren't impressed. They just got more defensive of Obama. Conservatives didn't hold up their end in the culture. Like soon after Reagan was gone, the country started going left because right-wingers are as dependent on politicians as liberals are to make change. The difference is that liberals know how to use illustrations to impress the policies they want. They lay groundwork to get people to give politicians the power to impose their statist worldview. Now, they're doing the same thing with Hillary that they did with Obama. They want to be with the in crowd of saying, I voted for the first female president. But it can't just be any female president. It has to be a female president that lines up with their backward ideals of what women should stand for. Much of the culture has been left-wing wired for that. These politicos, for all their intellect, are very culturally naive and are not grasping the shallowness of the default left-wing voter. Y'all want to entertain a third run for Romney when you haven't done the cultural groundwork to prepare for a Hillary Clinton run. You think he's going to amaze people with how he dominates her in the debates? You didn't consider that he's going to be used as the poster boy for the war on women. He'll just be seen as some rich white Republican trying to keep another woman from breaking the glass ceiling. Republicans have not laid the case and illustrated and promoted how the policies they stand for are friendliest to the dynamic of equality, especially where women are concerned. I don't care if you're running Alan West, Sarah Palin, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Ben Carson, or any of these darlings of the right. I like them too, and would be happy with any of them. But it's we the people who have to consent to be governed. And we have a twisted culture that consents to statism and will vote power to statism because they think that people who stand for statism are cool. But they're not going to consent to be governed by the likes of the Republicans I've mentioned. And if you really believe that it's we the people, then you've got to understand what people will and will not consent to. And you'll start with the people and do the work to promote our ideals to
Alfonso.
So that they may consent to be governed by people who are in office to make sure the people's God-given rights are protected. But you're doing it backwards. You're forgetting it's we the people. Y'all are always thinking it takes having the right person in office that makes change. We need this person for president. We need this person for Congress. We need this person for governor. No, we need you to promote conservatism and represent it in the culture instead of being dependent on a political figure to represent it in office. Remember, it's kind of pointless to have a government with conservatives if the people aren't going to consent to be governed by them. We conservatives are always saying gun control won't work because criminals don't care about your laws, right? Well, when you have a culture that rejects the law of the land that the Republican Party was founded to uphold, what makes you think that culture is going to abide by the laws you stand for? I'm trying to tell you, Republicans, politicians are not the answer. Our republic is under the rule of good law. But ever since its founding, there's always been people who rejected being ruled by good law, and they will force their will upon others in defiance of good law. Their selfishness and their defiance of good law was so powerful that it took a war that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives to put an end to it for that time. What good are your politicians and their policies and laws if the people don't consent to be governed by them? I keep telling folks who jumped off the Republican ship, you can't even save your own party. How do you expect to save the country? I'm hearing people say we need to form a third party because there's just not enough conservatives. Okay, now are you listening to yourselves? If there's not enough conservatives, then what's the point of forming a party of conservatives with a lack of conservatives? Stop acting out of frustration and start using that common sense we're always bragging about. One thing I'd recommend is putting our foot down on what conservatism is. And there's a lot of people out there who think of themselves as conservatives. They're pro-abortion, pro-redefinition of marriage, pro-legalization of anything you want to do with your body, pro-isolationism, etc. But consider themselves conservatives. And I'm like, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. And if you try to tell some of these people that they're not really conservatives, you can get cussed out. Trust me, I know. Or they'll tell you we need a big tent and all that stuff. And before you know it, we've got a big tent with room for everything except conservatism. You can be pro-capitalism, pro-life, pro-religious freedom, pro-limited government, pro-border security and all that stuff and have all these ducks in a row. But if you're iffy on gun control, then we got to throw the baby out with the bathwater because that baby don't walk on water. That person's not a conservative. Now, I agree. Being lax on the Second Amendment is a biggie. But my point is, there's too many people who would defend that people being pro-abortion, pro-redefinition of marriage, pro-legalize whatever you want to do with your body while not considering the cost it will impose on others, etc., can be conservatives too just because they hate taxes. But a person who's got most of the ducks in a row but falls short on an issue or two gets the boot. Then we definitely have something very, very wrong going on. Now, Romney wants to run off of how good he looks compared to the mess that Obama was. Hey.
Oh, whoops. Keep going, buddy.
Maybe third time's a charm. Now falls rich with zonation, and I know people feel like no matter what we do, they're just going to call us racist and sexist and whatever. But too many of y'all are lacking a lot of stamina, or don't know how to pace yourselves, like you thought this was going to be easy. You're up against a narrative the Democrats have been promoting for upwards of 50 years. And the constitutionally corrupt policies the Democrats have been imposing on this country is 150 years strong. How much damage do you think you've done to that monster with your vigorous retweets? Now, don't get me wrong. We need all y'all doing what you can with what you have and making use of social media. Please keep doing that.
What we don't need is defeatist attitudes, because the folks who were there when the Republican Party was founded were ready to go to war against the Democrats. The Democrats were mean and vicious then. They're mean and vicious now. Hopefully it won't take a war again. Hopefully we can make use of ways to promote our ideals and free people from the shackles of institutionalized selfishness.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's brilliant. So look, what I've been saying, you got to get involved. You got to get off the sidelines. You got to start talking to your family, your relatives, your neighbors, the people at work, at the bus stop, the parts store. We got to start telling people we're out there and we're not satisfied with Barack Hussein Obama or the progressive socialist statist movement. I mean, the time is now to wake up, wise up, stand up, and speak up. You got to get off the sidelines. It's time to get a little crazy. You got to get out of your... If you love liberty, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You really do. It's got to be you. It isn't going to be somebody else. What happens in this country in the next few years is whether or not you get off your butt and do something. All right, moving on. Zonation. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Talk about crony capitalism. Another example of how the progressive socialist statists are in bed with the Democratic Party. That big corporations are in bed with the Democrats and the progressive socialist statists. They share the same ideology. Crony capitalism. That's President Obama over and over and over again. I got this story from the Common Dreams. Says cable giants pull funding for dinner honoring FCC Commissioner. Time Warner and Comcast support the event. Was criticized since the two companies' merger is still under review by the agency. Article here written by Max Ocean, editorial intern. How cool is that? It says, following a critical reporting this week of cable and broadband giants Comcast and Time Warner Cable funding a dinner honoring the FCC Commissioner Mignon Clyburn, one of the regulators reviewing the company's proposed $45 billion merger, the two companies decided Thursday to pull the combined $130,000 that they had committed to the event. I mean, you know, here you go. I mean, we have laws against entertaining people who are involved with regulation, particularly in your industry. I never heard of such a thing. I'm really surprised myself. I worked in politics from 1979 to 1995, and you know, this was strictly forbidden in Colorado, having a fundraiser honoring somebody in the industry or honoring somebody who is supposed to be a watchdog for the people. A corporation honoring a regulator in their industry? Unbelievable. At a time when this commissioner, this FCC commissioner, Mignon Clyburn, is considering whether or not to allow Warner Cable and Comcast to merge, there's no sense of decency. There's no sense of right or wrong. These people are completely devoid of virtue. They can't even see the obvious. That's how far gone these people are that are running Comcast, Time Warner, not to mention the FCC Commissioner Mignon Clyburn. I mean, you can't even see the inherent conflict of interest. And remember, a public servant should not even want to be involved with a hint of conflict of interest. Not a hint, not a whiff. And this is a big old in your face, honoring him. So anyway, this is in the political. If you want to read the rest of the article, I mean, it reads like a who's who of big business and big non-profits. Yeah, like, get a load of this. I mean, talk about a culture of corruption. This is a good learning moment. It says in May, Crew found that, and Crew is, let's see, who's Crew? Oh, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. All right, in May, Crew found that between 2011 and 2013, Comcast had spent heavily to honor the Congressional Black Caucus, CBC, and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, whose members could be important supporters of the merger. Comcast also gave to the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies, honoring, among others, Representative Judy Chu, Democrat of California, who is a member of the House Judiciary Committee's subcommittee on intellectual property and the internet, and supported the Comcast NBC Universal merger approved back in 2011. And it's just all, it's corruption, it's crony capitalism, and this is the progressive socialist statist movement. And then again, 8 of the top richest people in the United States are progressive socialist statists, and they love big business because they're easy to control. And that's why the Chamber of Commerce is in bed with the Democrats. Psychological warfare, and exactly like Alfonso said, it's been going on for over 50 years. Psychological warfare from the progressive, socialist, statist, liberals. Oh, okay, I love this story. Again, you know, we hear about the Do-Nothing Congress, and of course they're referring to the Republicans. And of course our system is set up to make it very difficult for new laws to get passed. And here we have a congressman, I can't remember her name, but she's talking about all the bills that the Republican House has sent over to the U.S. Senate to Harry Reid that have bipartisan support, and these are laws that would have been able to be used to stimulate the economy, create jobs, fix infrastructure, yada, yada, yada. And they say that currently 352 bills that passed the House are awaiting action on Harry Reid's desk. All of these bills, 98% of these 352 bills passed with bipartisan support. Nearly 70% passed with 2/3 support or more. That's an accomplishment. And over 50% passed with no opposition at all. And 55 were introduced by Democrats. And still, Harry Reid refuses to bring them up because the narrative during this 2014 election cycle is that the Republicans are the Do-Nothing Congress. And because of the Do-Nothing Congress, everything sucks. It's brilliant. So here's this congressman talking about this issue. All right, Congressman, welcome to the Trailer Park Profit Show. I'm trying to see your name here. All right, take it away.
The president is fond of referring to the House as the Do-Nothing Congress. But we have 352 reasons why it's a do-nothing Senate. 352 bills are sitting on Harry Reid.
All right, I'm going to have to cut this out.
Action. 98% of them passed with bipartisan.
I got to kill this. That's just what I told you. She's having a hard time. She's nervous. First time on the Trailer Park Prophet Show. She's a little congressman, kind of good looking. The old prophet kind of liked her. Let's see here. Story from, those guys we found last week or on Monday. The Raging Elephants Radio. Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott says up to 1,000 National Guard troops will be deployed in the U.S.-Mexico border to stop immigrants who are allegedly coming into the country and committing felonies. Rape, armed robbery, strong-arm robbery. And basically, you know, it's the Mexicans exporting their criminals. In part, that's what's going on right now. The USA is importing criminals because we don't have enough of them already. Okay, alright. Let's see, what do we got here? Rescue Christians initiate to save thousands of Iraqi citizens. Or Christians, I mean. Now, this is from Shubat. Now, this guy, we've used him before, and he is a convert from Islam. And now he has his own website called Shubat.com, Awareness in Action. And he's interesting. We might have a video we can listen to, but if you want to hear the other side of what is going on in Islam from a former Islamic individual, this guy is really a good guy. And here, I'll just read this one paragraph. He says, a country of 23 million people is the first to lead the way to do what is right regarding the desperate refugee problem in Kurdistan. That country is Australia. It is wonderful that Australia has led by example to open its border and accept 4,400 refugees from Iraq. But it is a shame and utter disgrace that America, the so-called leader of the free world, has not announced publicly its willingness to bypass their current UNHCR policy and accept at least 15 times more refugees, which would be at least 66,000 based on population differences of Australia. Alright. This wasn't exactly what I thought it was. Otherwise, I normally really like this guy. And we probably should take in some refugees, but I'll tell you what, the Kurdistan people love America, and I don't think Barack Obama wants people in our country that love America. They want people in our... I think Barack Hussein Obama wants people in our country that love Islam, love Muhammad. Alright. Enough of that story. Oh, this is kind of predictable. Here's Robert Reich. Remember, I was doing almost a story every show here at the Trailer Park Prophet Show, and we would talk about Robert Reich. I was friends with Robert Reich on Facebook, so I mean his stuff would get sent to me. I mean, it was so cool, and then I would share his articles, and then I would be able to argue against them on my Facebook page, but now we're not friends anymore. So Robert Reich basically he's like the dean of the University of Progressive Socialism Statism. That's how I think of him. And he has a piece out there. Yeah, it's written by Robert Reich. American democracy is diseased. That's what he's saying. He's saying that Americans are sick of politics. Only 13% approve of the job Congress is doing. A near record low. The president's approval ratings are also in the basement. A large portion of the public doesn't even bother voting. Only 57.5% of eligible voters cast their ballots in the 2012 presidential election. People standing on the sidelines, discouraged. Who knows? Put simply, most Americans feel powerless and assume the public game is fixed, so why bother? You know, it's ironic, though. It's Robert Reich's liberal, progressive, socialist status that made people this way. Made them feel powerless. It either makes them feel powerless or they turn into zombies. Alright, a new study scheduled to be published in fall by Princeton's Martin Gevins and Northwestern University Benjamin Page confirms our... I don't know, I've had enough of this. Let's see what else. I mean, I think the whole premise is, you know, it's like Rush Limbaugh says, the drive-by media, you know, the progressive socialist statists have been spending the last 50 years demeaning our country's worth in the history of humanity here on planet Earth. And now everyone is discouraged and afraid to go to the public square or turned out like zombies, and they're reporting on that as news, and they're not admitting that they're a big part of the problem. They are the problem. But if you want to read this, of course it's on my Facebook page. You can go there anytime. I see you guys all the time on my Facebook page. Thanks a lot. You can go to Daniel Gray or Trailer Park Prophet. Okay, now this is a story that blows my mind. Although I think we've reported on this lady before. Her name is Karen Lewis, you might remember. She's the Chicago Teachers Union president. Karen Lewis is known for being a socialist who rails against the rich. And I'm sure she rails against Republicans and the Tea Party. Lewis joined the Occupy movement when it was in full bloom. And now she is running for mayor against Rob Emanuel. He's the incumbent. He used to work for Obama. And leads according to the poll. The Chicago Sun-Times is already having some fun reporting on what is sure to be one of the most ridiculous races in America. She has ripped Mayor Rahm Emanuel as a tool for corporate Chicago, labeled him Mayor 1%, and described herself as not egotistical or rich. Lewis isn't as wealthy as Emanuel, a multimillionaire who made his fortune during a short stint as an investment banker, but she makes more than $200,000 a year and has an ownership interest in 3 homes, according to records. That includes vacation homes in Hawaii, in an upscale harbor country area of southwestern Michigan, where Emanuel has a second home. I don't know. It's kind of a pissing match. But they're interesting. Here she is right here. Let's go ahead and give a listen here to Miss Lewis.
Real reform starts from the bottom up. It has to go from the bottom up. These people can't make these policies.
Karen Lewis.
Without having some understanding of what's going on down here on the ground. That's a problem.
And this is an issue that is reaching the estimating tentacles. You know, it started out as everyone finger pointing at the big banks, but you think it's bigger than that. You guys are teachers. You couldn't be further from the big bank.
governmental public institutions. They are taking money from us, from the public institutions, transferring it to the wealthy. So the problem is that they're blaming us for all of the ills. So these are the same people that are saying poverty is not an excuse, but they use it as an excuse to ignore poverty. That's where we are right now. So these people owe a lot to everybody that's here on the street. You don't make money by yourself. So the key is, when are they going to understand that this inequitable distribution of wealth is not the American way? It isn't. It's not job creation. This is pure thievery in its purest form. And what are people doing? They're saying this is not the way to run this country. So I'm so honored and I'm so humbled to be here amongst people who really care about what's going on in the city. We're not going to tolerate this robber baron behavior. We're not going to tolerate it. Thank you.
Wow. That's unbelievable. She kept saying they, you know. We can't, white people better not say they when they're talking about blacks or Mexicans or gays, but this woman, the Chicago Teachers Union president, Karen Lewis, she's like they and pointing her fingers and getting all ugly, and you know, and it's that same narrative too, that all corporations are bad, evil, lumping all corporations into one group, one big ugly smelly bag, you know. And she's the head of the teachers union, and the teachers are in there talking to all the little creepy kids, shoving this progressive socialist status crap down their throats 24/7. I mean, again, public school is institutionalized child abuse. Alright, you're listening to Daniel Gray, Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. If you'd like to call into the program, please do 646-716-8506. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I always miss 2-3 callers a show. I don't know. I think they might charge you to be on hold. I don't know. At any rate, excusez-moi. It's for the children. If you believe that, you are dumb like a stump. You are not worthy of oxygen or liberty. Alright, again, I'm going to say this over and over and over and over again. Every police officer, every politician, every lawyer should have a cam connected to the front of their chest. And now, officers in Rialto, California, wherever that is, are now required to wear video cameras while on duty. Amen. Amen. Like I said, politicians should have to do the same thing. And get a load of this. They say in 1 year, use of force has dropped 60% and complaints have dropped by 88%. And my friend Kevin Healy says, and crime is up 90%. That's so funny. People are so creative. I love humor. Oh, okay. I don't know about this. Do we have time to do this? Let's see. I don't know if I want to do this or not. Supposedly, now I don't know if this is true. This is from worldtruth.tv. And they're claiming to have the 13 most evil U.S. government experiments on humans. So let's see, I'm going to scroll down here and see if we really want to spend any time on this. Anyways, it was kind of an interesting scenario, so I kind of put it up there. Alright, I guess number 2 is mustard gas tested on soldiers via involuntary gas chambers. Oh, that's horrible. Number 3, let's see. Oh, U.S. grants immunity to involuntary surgery monster. Oh my God. I think this guy was decapitating people, trying to transplant brains or heads rather. Number 4, deadly chemical sprays on American cities. What? Showing once again that the U.S. always tends to test out worst case scenarios on getting them first, and with the advent of biochemical warfare, I don't know. This sounds kind of, I don't know if I believe. That's like Comtrails. Oh yeah, in the 1940s, with penicillin as an established cure for syphilis, the U.S. decided to test out its effectiveness on Guatemalan citizens. Alright, I'm kind of bored with this. I'm sorry, this is definitely citizen journalism. I don't have an opportunity to... Hey, listen, I got a question for you. Do 2 illegal aliens having a child, having children... Anyways, they're saying 2 illegal aliens having children should not create an American citizen. That's easy for me to say. Oh my God, Crestdown was incredibly beautiful this morning. It was overcast, and Bailey Barker and I went for a walk in the forest, and it was just positively beautiful. It rained last night. The air was delicious. Okay, good. Here, I want to do this story. I haven't really wanted to do this story because everyone was doing this story. And the story I'm talking about is how liberals are after the Washington Redskins NFL football team to change their name because they consider Redskins as racist. Well, anyways, I think liberals should mind their own GD business. And I'm tired of liberals sticking their nose into everything. They don't like sports, and so all they do is they're the proverbial turd in a punch bowl. And I don't think there's any great outrage from Native Americans against the use of Redskins. In fact, there's plenty of evidence that a lot of Native Americans actually like the term Redskins. It's a term of endearment. So here comes Mike Ditka. He says, Redskins name controversy. Just, quote, all the politically correct idiots in America. And they just want to make trouble. They just want to attack institutions. They don't do anything of worth except increase the size of the government and bitch all the time. And he says, Mike Ditka, he says, I'm sorry, I'm not very tolerant when it comes to all the liberals who complain about everything. He goes on to say that it's so much horse shit, it's incredible. You know what? The liberals of this world run the world. It was said out of reference, out of pride to the American Indian, even though it called a redskin. What are you going to call it? A brown skin? This is so stupid, it's appalling, and I hope the owner keeps fighting for it and never changes it, because the Redskins are part of football history, and it should never be anything but the Washington Redskins. It's all the politically correct idiots in America, that's all it is. It's got nothing to do with anything else. The proverbial turd in the punch bowl, that is what liberals are. Amen. You know, it's just like when we talk about the gay issue, when we find out that gays are only 2% of the population, but they make up like 65% of the bitching and whining. Same thing here. If you don't like the Redskins, don't watch them. You know, you don't like football? Find a ledge. God, quit your bitching, you liberals. Bitch, 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 bitch. whiny. Oh, this is breaking news. You know, the officer that shot Michael Brown, Darron Wilson, and I'm not sure if he's white or black yet, but evidently they released today that the officer, Darron Wilson, okay, it says here that he could be cleared of the shooting of Michael Brown. A key witness has now admitted that Michael Brown attacked Officer Wilson and attempted to take his gun. This is scary if this is news made official, because this will like send Ferguson and other areas around the U.S. that have already made up their minds. It's going to send them into total chaos. But the other news that came out today was Officer Wilson had injuries from Michael Brown. And one report I was listening to said that Officer Darron Wilson, his eye socket was broken. The bone around his eye, you know, that's scary stuff. And again, we still don't know if Officer Darron Wilson is white or black, or at least not to my satisfaction. But, you know, back to Melissa Harris Perry, you know, all that information has been held by the Department of Justice. They've been telling the Ferguson police, you got to hold on to this information and not release it. Contempt of court. God, we were reporting on that a week ago. Oh my God, this is really telling. I've actually seen this before. This is a video of President Barack Hussein Obama when he was meeting with some Russian leaders. And we have this video. You got to see it. And here's President Obama, and he's shaking hands of all these Russian leaders. And these are Russian leaders and high cabinet officials. And 3 of them would not shake Barack Hussein Obama's hand. And you can see it in this video, man. President Obama is really put off. He's pissed off. Because Obama reaches for these Russian officials.
President Putin, former President Putin, Prime Minister, is considered by many to still...
They intentionally are moving Barack Obama along in this meet and greet line. And these guys, you can tell it's almost rehearsed. They won't shake Barack Hussein Obama's hand, and they reach over to the Medved, Prime Minister Medved of Russia. I mean, they are obviously dishing President Obama, and this woman puts up, you know, she's asking, well, is it racism, or is it just a lack of respect for Barack Obama? Now, I saw this video before. This is from, I want to say 2010, 2011, at any rate, but I'm glad it came back up again, because it's another example of how world leaders view Barack Hussein Obama as a stuffed shirt. Because what they did here is a diplomatic insult. The Russians deeply insulted Barack Hussein Obama in the United States, deeply. And that's seen all over the world. That's seen by ISIS, that's seen by Australia, that's seen by Europe, and it's seen by us here at the Trailer Park Prophet Show. Oh my God, I listened to some of this yesterday and I thought, I gotta put this on the show today. And this is from CNBC. No, it's from MSNBC. You gotta listen to this. This guy is, his name is Dylan Ratigan. And he's a big time Democrat, big time investor. And he has his own show on MSNBC, and he's speaking, he's sitting in a, you know how they have those group settings around the table talking about politics, but this guy, he really makes me mad, this guy that you're going to listen to, Dylan Ratigan. But he went on a rant here yesterday, I think it was, and he said some stuff I think need to be heard, and boy, everybody in this panel was just stuck in the headlights of the anger of Dylan Radigan. So let's give this a listen. I think this is well worth our time. I think you're going to like this. All right, Dylan, welcome back to the Trailer Park Profit Show. Don't be bad.
$70 trillion.
I understand that, but
Goes
you
to
can't
walk out a
say-
$4 trillion solution, which is basically just a way for the Democrats to avoid dealing with this until 2017. I'm not here to talk about plans to deal with this till 2017. I'm saying we've got a real problem, and I'm tired of Republicans and Democrats who either want Republicans who want to burn the place to the ground, and Democrats, with all due respect, who want to offer a plan that gets it through their end of their second term of their presidency, and then.
I got to stop him there. I mean, Republicans do not want to burn the economy to the ground. That's hyperbole. That's turbo BS. That really is hate speech. And it certainly isn't very academic. I mean, what imagery? The Republicans want to burn it to the ground. All right, Dylan.
Screws me and my kids when it's over. And until we do that, we have to deal with the extraction that is at foot. It is the reason the financial markets are behaving the way they're behaving. That is a mathematical fact. This is not some opinion. This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America. Democrats aren't doing it. Republicans are not doing it. An entire integrated system, financial system, trading system, taxing system that was created by both parties over a period of 2 decades is at work on our entire country right now. And we're sitting here arguing about whether we should do the $4 trillion plan that kicks the can down the road for the president for 2017 or burn the place to the ground, both of which are reckless, irresponsible, and stupid. And the fact of the matter is, until we actually, and I'm sorry to lose my temper again, but I tell you what, I've been coming on TV for 3 years doing this. And the fact of the matter is that there's a refusal on both the Democratic and the Republican side of the aisle to acknowledge the mathematical problem, which is that the United States of America is being extracted. It's being extracted through banking, it's being extracted through trade, and it's being extracted through taxation. And there's not a single politician that has stepped forward, Susan, to deal with
But
this.
there's only one right now. It's the leader of the free world, whether you like it or not. The President of the United States is arguably one of the most powerful individuals we have out there.
But
And
Susan,
he's
what you're saying
is exactly the point that Dylan is making. It's not about one guy. It's about all of them. I actually disagree. I think Dylan's saying it isn't about one guy.
It is about one guy.
What would you like him to do?
I would like him to go to the people of the United States of America and say, people of the United States of America, your Congress is bought. Your Congress is incapable of making legislation on health care, banking, trade, or taxes, because if they do it, they will lose their political funding and they won't do it. But I'm the President of the United States, and I will have a country that is run by a bought Congress. So I'm not going to work with the bought Congress and try to be Mr. Big Guy. I'm working with the bought Congress. I'm going to abandon the bought Congress like Teddy Roosevelt did, and I'm going to go to the people of the United States and I'm going to say, you've got a bought Congress. And until we get rid of the bought Congress, which is Jimmy Williams' constant point, which is get the money out of politics, and until a president says that's the problem and says he's going to fix it, there is no policy that I can possibly see, no matter how brilliant your idea may be, or your idea, or my idea, or her idea, or your idea at home, is that idea will not happen as long as there's the capacity to basically fire a politician who disagrees with me by taking funding away from him. Is that a fair assessment?
You're a lunatic.
Is the root of all political evil. It is corruption at its worst. And until we step up and kick that out of the park, it's going to be the same system.
Jimmy Williams.
Congress has to do it too. Congress has to do it too. But I'll tell you what, how bad does it have to get? How much money has to be extracted?
All right, I can't listen anymore. All right, it's just interesting that this conversation even took place, but where Dylan goes wrong is that the Republicans are saying we have to cut our spending. And Dylan equates that as burning the town down. But the fact is, we can't continue spending at the rate we're spending. And we're borrowing 40 cents on every dollar. And that's what the Republicans are saying. We got to cut spending. And people like Dylan call that burning the place down. So, I mean, Dylan is obviously mental. He's crazy. But at least he brought up a good point. I mean, kinda. And then the other people on the panel are all... I don't know. It was just kind of a meltdown. You don't see that very often from people in the media. But he is right in that if we don't stop spending and borrowing from future generations, our children are going to be the ones that suffer. They're going to suffer by having a bigger tax bill, and they're going to suffer by the deflating dollar or inflation. As the dollar deflates, it's going to take more and more money out of our children and grandchildren's pockets. Oh my God. Oh man, this was on the New York Times. Oh, this is a big story. This is huge. There's a reporter for the New York Times, and this story comes from the New York Times. His name is Risen. I think it's James Risen. Yeah, James Risen, and I've read a couple of his articles. And he's a writer for the New York Times, and he's basically saying that Obama is the greatest enemy to the press. That Obama is the greatest enemy to press freedom. And this is in the New York Times. And all these things that Obama has done recently to the press, in case you forget, you need some remedial education. Obama was illegally, without court order, listening to the phone conversations of 200 phones at the Associated Press. President Obama, without court order, was wiretapping a reporter from Fox and his parents, James Rosen. Yeah, I mean, Obama, here recently, the press isn't invited into White House functions. The press can't bring their cameras to White House functions. All of these campaign stops the president does 2 or 3 a day, they're all closed to the public. Oh, and did you hear that story about Hillary Clinton? She got a gig to speak in front of some university, I think it was in California, and someone got a hold of Hillary Clinton's list of conditions to come and speak at this college, and her basic speaking fee was $250,000, and the university also had to guarantee her that she wouldn't ride in anything less than, she even stated the type of aircraft, one of those fancy executive jets, and it had to be, of a certain class or better, and that she had to have her choice of the presidential suite in the city that she was going to visit, and that there was to be no press at her speech, and there would be no video, no audio. The only record would be from a stenographer, stenographer, whatever they call them. Somebody, you know what that is. And that copy would belong to Hillary, and that she was not making any endorsement of the college. I wish I could endorse a college or remind myself of the college, but it doesn't matter. It'd be the same contract she'd want from any college or university, but it kind of goes against her narrative of her and Bill being destitute when they left the White House. But it also is, I mean, there was things in there basically to keep Hillary from ever having to intermingle with the small people. And it even said that she would do 30 or so, I don't know what the number was, actual photographs, where they do the side-by-side. It just gave the impression that Hillary Clinton is a money-grubbing, smug, liberal asshole. Now this is interesting. Speaking of MSNBC, here comes Reverend Al Sharpton talking about what's going on in Ferguson. he said, we're not looters. We're liberators. We are not burners. We're builders. So here's this old black guy, professional race baiter. He's even saying we, we're not looters. Like he's out there. He came to Ferguson to go do some looting with the brothers. I mean, otherwise he would have said they're not looters. But it's interesting that Al Sharpton chose to say, we're not looters, we're liberators. Yeah, right. Al, you're liberating the rightful owner of those store goods from their inventory. And he says, we're not burners, we're builders. Then, I don't even know what to do with that line. They are burners. And what have they built? I mean, whatever good came out of a riot? I guess there's more, I don't know. That's not building. I guess, building relationships, I don't know. It seems kind of silly. And this is kind of funny. I got this from someone in the Tea Party, and they have a picture. It's a black and white picture of a prison, and it says above, the perfect home for liberals, never thought about it this way before, and it says prisons. It's kind of a metaphor for how liberalism is like a prison. Everyone is treated equally, free food, free medical, free health care. Only the police and guards have guns. It's a liberal paradise. Their very own gated community. Oh my God. Oh, we can't get into that story. I can't do that right now. I don't want to talk about ISIS anymore. Okay, let's do this though. This will be kind of funny. Here we're on CNN. I was going to say we're on MSNBC, but I believe, yeah, this is from CNN. I love this guy. He says, here, let me stop this right here. Let me set this up. Yeah, this is on CNN Live, the Erin Burnett show. I have a crush on her. CNN Live has Niger Innes. He is the chief strategist of the TeaParty.net, and Mary Curtis of the Washington Post blog, She the People. Okay. So Niger is a black conservative, and I think you're really going to enjoy this. All right, guys, take it away, and welcome back to the Trailer Park Prophet.
Racist comments or politics as usual. So Dr. Ben Carson, you may be familiar with him. He's an up-and-coming African-American in the Republican Party. Anyway, he's being taken to task tonight after making some controversial comments on Mark Levin's conservative radio show. Here it is.
You're attacked also, in many respects, because of your race, because you're not supposed to think like this and talk like this. A lot of white liberals just don't like it, do they?
Well, they're the most racist people there are, because, they put you in a little category, a little box. You have to think this way. How could you dare come off the plantation?
How could you dare come off the plantation? Carson and Levin were talking about how Carson says white liberals are attacking him for opposing gay marriage. Out front tonight, Mary Curtis, a blogger for the Washington Post, and Niger Innes, the chief strategist for the TeaParty.net. Okay, great to see both of you. Appreciate it. Let me start with you. Does Dr. Carson have a point that white liberals tend to put African Americans in a certain category or a little box, and that they are, as he says, quote, the most racist people?
Well, yes, he does. He absolutely has a point. And, look, Dr. Carson is not a refined politician. He's a rank-and-file person outside of the field of politics. That's why the American people love him so much. So he can be a little clumsy sometimes in what he wants to say, but he's dead on with what he's trying to say. I mean, isn't it interesting, Aaron? I think even Mary would agree with me that it is quite racist to say that all certain type of people look alike. But somehow, with many white liberals, and for that matter, black liberals, it is not racist to have the presumption that all blacks do or all blacks should think alike. And that's what Dr. Carson was talking about, and he's dead on.
All right, let me ask you, Mary, to be clear, what sparked this conversation about white liberals was what Dr. Carson recently said about gay marriage. So let me just play that to give everyone the context.
No group, be they gays, be they NAMBLA, be they people who believe in bestiality, it doesn't matter what they are, they don't get to change the definition.
Okay, now this is the definition of marriage. Mary, if white liberals have an issue with what he just said there about gay marriage, are they racist? Listen, this is politics. He's going to criticize others, and he's going to get criticized. If you put same-sex marriage and NAMBLA in the same sentence, you will be criticized. And what did he do? He apologized. And it was time to move on. NAMBLA, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, but is North American Man-Boy Love Association. That's why it's offensive, yeah. It is offensive. And as Nigel said, he's not sophisticated. He's not used to politics. It's time to move on. But what did he do? He talked about white...
You know, this is so insultive because both these people are considering themselves insiders, and somehow they understand the confines of the battle on the public square. And just because you haven't been making a living out of politics doesn't mean you necessarily don't know something, but it doesn't mean you're not sophisticated. I think Dr. Benjamin, can't even think of his name right now, a little slip. The guy they're talking about, I mean, I think he's sophisticated. I think people are refreshed that they're politicians or wannabe politicians, want to say something outside the confines of the professional politicians. All right, let's get back to this.
Liberals and being racist, and he blamed them. And so he wants to be treated as an individual, and yet he stereotypes all white liberals as being racist. And that doesn't seem would be the way you would go if you want to make that particular point.
But they liberal people in the media are racist. They're racist because of the fact of the, let's see, how do we put it? The worst racism on the planet is low expectations of blacks. And that comes from white liberals. Just like what we're seeing in Ferguson. There's a low expectation for blacks. That's the worst kind of racism in the world. If you admit that, okay, we need to have affirmative action in our schools, in our workplace, in our government, you have to admit that blacks are somehow substandard to whites. You admit that society should look at blacks and have a different sort of opinion on what they should do to be successful. Low expectations. Affirmative action is said that there's low expectations for blacks, so we gotta somehow adjust the ratios. That's what that is. But that, in and of itself, is the worst kind of racism.
Point of agreement with Mary, which is that if you stick your head into the field of politics, you're going to get hit from both sides. There's no question about it. And I'm sure Mary was equally critical of those who say that they are racist, or that those that offer a critique of President Obama's policies are racist simply because they're criticizing a black man, or because they call him a socialist, or mention his middle name are racist. That's equally absurd, and that the president, the most powerful man in the world, is going to receive critique, and sometimes that critique is going to be harsh, and just because it is harsh does not mean that it's racist. I'm sure that Mary offers that critique as well.
Well, let me ask you, Judy, because he gets harsh criticism, it is not racist, but there is some criticism of President Obama that is racist, and you can tell the difference.
Yeah, guess what, sister? There was racist criticism from your black community about George Bush, so get over yourself. Everybody on planet Earth is racist. We have a right to be racist. We have a right to be, as they used to say, discriminating. God, quit playing the race card. Anyways, this woman who's running her mouth, she looks like a mulatto. Alright, back to the... Oh, and something I wanted to say. Benjamin Carson, I couldn't think of his name. Dr. Benjamin Carson. He's the one that these talking heads were referring to as being not sophisticated in politics. At any rate, I wanted to say one thing more. You know, back to, you know, we were talking about how, who was talking about how Congress is bought? Well, the president is bought too. You know, let's not forget, President Obama is owned by the big bankers and the hedge funds people and the unions and, of course, the big-ass multi-billion-dollar corporations. Everybody's bought. And again, that's why we got to remember one of the things we need changed in the Constitution is to have all of our public elections publicly funded. That's so important. That should be our number one quest as a constitutional amendment. Public funding of elections. And both sides are prostitutes to the current system. Alright, I don't want to hear any more from these people. We only got 10 minutes. Story here from Breitbart. After White House meets with Big Biz, Obama may use executive actions to increase guest worker visas. So the president, during his vacation, has time to sit down with one of these multi-billionaires, several of these multi-billionaires. Remember, 8 of the 10 richest people in the United States are progressive socialists, and they want to allow for more of a particular kind of worker to help their industry. And yet, Obama's letting all these people flood into the U.S., and we don't need any more low-skill workers. And it kills jobs for guys like me that want to work with their hands. Oh, okay, I already mentioned this. I was mentioning about the officer, Darron Wilson. He suffered a orbital blowout fracture to his eye socket during his tussle with what's his name, Michael Brown. Oh, this is so funny. I imagine this comes from Korea or Vietnam, but they have a new product out there and they got it kind of mixed up. And they put the English name for their product, and it's basically like a top ramen. And it says soup for sluts. And I put on my Facebook page, I said, soup for sluts. Sounds about my speed, Trailer Park Prophet. Kind of scare women away. That's why I like to say, and this really is one of my favorite sayings, and that is, quote, women that like me aren't my type. You know, here's another story here that nobody knows about it. I think this is the 5th time we talked about it. And it's a story of these 2 youngsters, these young teenagers, white. And let's see, their name was Cannon Christian and Chris Newsom, a couple. They're probably 19 years old. And they got killed by these black youths. And this story has gotten no attention. And I mean, I think there was 5 different black youth, 5 different young black individuals, and they took this couple and they raped them, they tortured them, they burned them, they poured bleach on them, both in the face of each other. This Shannon Christian and Chris Newsom, I mean, it was a brutal death. The victims were white, the perpetrators were black, and nobody knows about this story. And now this woman who is an accessory after the fact, she's trying to get parole. And I can't even tell you, I don't even remember what state it is. So, I mean, here I am. I don't even know the facts because the media hasn't made it a story like it has in Ferguson. Alright, we got 5 minutes. Okay, wait, maybe I want to do this story. This is a New York PD detective breaks down how to deal with the police when you're stopped. And what I submit to you is that those individuals that Melissa Harris Perry talked about, or this guy in Ferguson, Michael Brown, would have not gotten killed had they been respectful, had they not presented as a threat to society or acting out. I'm sorry, if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, chances are you're being involved with some wrong-headed activity. You know, everyone's acting so innocent, but let's listen to this guy. I think this might be good. I'm not sure what show this is on, but the website's Young Black Wealth Builders.
If you didn't see the Central Park 5 documentary, go see that. When I saw that, I only had like 4 years on the job at the time, so I was just learning. But what really was heartfelt was when you looked at those young boys, and I know the whole story. When you look at those young boys who was crying and pouring out for help, and they thought they were going to get it from their parents, the parents didn't even know how to protect their kids when it came to law enforcement. That's why we educate the community on what to do when stopped by the police. We educate parents because parents don't know, even if you do, which you shouldn't.
See, this is something you should learn from your parents. And if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't need to be worried about the police. They're not the enemy. You're glad to see the police there. The police are supposed to be our friends, and they need to have those cameras recording every single thing they do, and one on their cop car. So do politicians. I digressed. But the fact that people don't know what it'd be like living in anarchy, just the whole notion that people in the ghetto and Democrats hate police, but not having enough sense to keep yourself out of a police car, in a courthouse, in a jail, that to me shows me that they came from parents that didn't have enough sense themselves. I mean, rule number 1 in life should be stay out of jail. Alright? Rule number 1. Alright, we're going to take you out. Listen to this guy.
Give the police department the permission to talk to your loved one. If you do, at any given time, you can stop it. At any given time. But you never should give the police department the permission to speak to your loved one if they're arrested. We tell the young folks out there, don't speak to them. I'm going to use part of my time to just give you a simple demonstration of what I teach young kids. When you're walking down the street, you get a call, and the police get a call. If the police stop you in the area, I'm going to give you a Saturday night, whatever area you're at, and the police stop you, do you know why they're stopping you? They're stopping you because you're the only one in that facility. So right then and there, you are the perpetrator. You don't know you're the perpetrator.
All right, everybody, I got to get out of here. We'll see you on Friday. Have any kind of day you want. You know who loves you. The Trailer Park Prophet.
Did you hear a gunshot? Did you see somebody run? And what you think is you think because you're not the perpetrator, right? You tend to think, well, let me help them out. Or let me defend myself. You don't have to defend yourself.
Bye, everybody.